Pensado's Place is brought to you by...
We're going to get into live sound with one of the best. We got a brand new ITL, information on an Indaba contest. You're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
What's up, what's up? Glad to have you with us. Man, today's gonna be a good show, great show. Something's been on my mind, Herb, but first, before I get into that, how you been?
I've been good, man. How about you?
Man, you know, I wish I could think of something witty about my week, because you know what my week was like.
I do.
I mean, Atlas Van Lines was my, I moved this week.
Yes, you did. And actually, folks are going to see one of your moves a little bit today, correct?
Yeah.
So,
ITL's in a new studio.
but what's on your mind? You had some stuff
And
on
you know
your
what? I want you guys to pay close attention to this. Our guest today, it's not a random reason why he's here. We really reached out to one of the top guys because our world is changing, guys. And those of you that do this and want to do this for a profession, this is going to be an important show for you. Those of you that need options in your life, it's also important because there's a paradigm shift going on in our audio world, and there's the live sound guys. That profession has really taken off. Not that it hasn't in the past, but there's a lot more live venues. It requires a lot more people. Whereas my side of the world is shrinking a little bit. So Herb and I talk all the time about how to get you guys up to speed, not just on mixing, but every element of audio. We've brought you the feature from Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Herb's got you guys lined up to see some Foley stuff. We showed you the machinations behind the scenes of a major TV show with major talent. So this is we give you a lot of pie. This is some vegetables today. So pay close attention, right, Herbert?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the good news is that really audio is expanding. So we should show all
overall,
of that.
yes. Overall, it's growing.
Absolutely. So since we got such a good guest, should we get on with it?
I think so.
Good deal. So, guys, welcome. Good to see you. We're coming to you live from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles, as usual.
Yes.
From the beautiful HD studio, which stands for...
Harley Davidson.
There you go. Absolutely. On our social media stuff, like and subscribe. Like at Facebook, subscribe at YouTube.
Plan something for that. I get caught every week like a deer in the headlights.
And by the way, we want to commend you for your support of the show. The likes and subscribes really count, and they're showing up. That's helpful to us. Hello to the two folks that make sure we're here for you for free every day. Vintage King is one of them. Hey, Vintage King, guys.
What's up, guys?
Stuff coming there. We've got Darrin Fendley in the chat room, and I think we have a Stump the VK guy question.
Well, first we do Stump the Herbert pronunciation.
Right,
but that's
well, we already
another
did that, and I failed. So.
You know what, Darrin? What are impulse responses, and can I make my own? Also, is it possible to convert an impulse response to fit any reverb that utilizes impulse responses? And if Darrin is so good, I'm gonna throw in a B question.
Okay.
And define a convolution reverb for us too while you're there, Darrin.
Nice. So there you go. Get busy with that. And also to our pals at Avid, we love our Avid friends. Lots of good stuff going on in that space. There's new features on their website about Pro Tools 11. Yeah. We're having some discussions about what we're going to do about that. I think Dave and I are talking about a panel.
11's a beast, by the way.
Doing some interesting stuff there. Get to their Facebook page, like make sure you like and subscribe with everything they're doing. They got a lot more content going there. Dave's going to have some content on the site as well. So as you support us, please support them. We love that.
Supporting them supports us.
It does. It keeps bringing that show to you, bringing the show to you, and that's a
Very
great,
important.
great.
And they're great partners.
Absolutely, as is Vintage King. Indaba, the mixed competition, Feel Real by Matthew Weiss. The voting, the submission period is now closed, but the voting is open. So make sure, now understand this, we will make those final decisions, but make sure you continue to vote, weigh in, and so on and so forth. We're not just doing it by rankings. Dave's going to get involved, and so please do.
I read a lot of your comments and a lot of your votes because it helps me tailor, and Herb too, helps us tailor the show to some of the things that are on your mind. So if a lot of guys are talking about a particular thing or a particular flaw or a particular quality or asset, then that gives me an idea. Maybe I should do a show on that. Mm-hmm, so it's not wasted. We definitely look at that.
and specifically for the contest thing, you want to be part of the community. You want your voice to be heard, so we can, once we select that winner, which will be selected and announced on May 10th. So we'll select and announce on May 10th. Make sure you do that. We got good stuff for you. Into the Lair is going to look a little bit different. Why don't you intro it and get it popping?
Today's a short and sweet Into the Lair. From time to time, a guest will inspire me to do something in terms of Into the Lair, and today is one of those days. Here we go. Guys, what's up? Glad to have you with us. New L and ITL this week. We recently had Showtech on. They shared a couple of secrets, several secrets that I found fascinating and useful, and some I actually already used myself. Now, how do you get huge, big synth lead sounds and synth pad sounds like Showtech? Let's jump in and see. This is my version of what they do. So expand on it, grow it, make it your own. See if you can surpass Showtech, the best of the best. Now, the problem we have sometimes when we add reverb to something is it tends to push it back in the mix. So this solves the problem of that. Gives you the bigness of a reverb, everything good about a reverb with nothing bad. So here's the sound we're working with. Now, pretty good, great sound. Now let's see if we can make it bigger without take a step back in the mix. So let's create a track where we just use our reverb of choice. These are just basic reverbs. I'm using true verb, deverb works just as well. Any generic gate. Now I'm sending the gate sidechain here, bus 85. I'm sitting here on bus 85. Now let's don't use the gate and let's see what we got. There's a lot of reverb. So now let's put the gate on, and you can watch and see what you'll see the gate open and closing here. So you notice that the gate is being controlled by the original sound. So when the original sound goes away, the gate slams shut on the reverb. And great techniques. I think when I first showed you this technique a long time ago, we did it on a vocal, but it works on everything. Listen to some tunes that you hear in the EDM world, particularly Showtech's songs, and you'll hear some examples of this. This is the basic building block, the basic place you want to start. Let me show you one other thing. I liked that, but I decided to enhance it a little bit, so I added a little bit of a dark echo on it. So you see it gives a little bit of a tail, but the tail is not a reverb tail, it's a delay tail. So what have we learned today? We saw a problem, we found a solution. So the way we solved this problem is we took our original sound, we sent it to the side chain of a gate, we let the original sound control how the gate operated. We put the gate after our reverb so that our reverb can only be heard when the original sound is going. And we saw the difference between letting that decay occupy all that space in between when the original sound starts and stops and what it sounds like muted in that space. The net effect is it just brings the sound where it should sit in front of the mix, but yet it gives you the width and power and bigness of the reverb itself. All right, next week.
An ITL you can use. Make sure you go back and review that, and particularly notice the paint can as it sat there with no apparent purpose whatsoever.
It's green though. There was non-volatiles paint in there prior to me using it.
It's green because there's nothing in it?
It was green because it had nothing that could harm the environment.
Oh, okay, good. So it's an environmental thing.
Yeah, and it's got cat litter in it now to absorb the low frequencies.
So you got two things out of your ITL, and please make sure you utilize those things.
Yeah, and I recommend fresh cat litter.
Fresh cat litter, thank you. Now that we've completely ruined it.
Well,
live sound, front of house stuff.
That was Will's idea. I thought it was a great idea. I never thought about that.
Welcome to our table, one of the best, Sully Sullivan, man.
Sean, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, hold on, we go through her.
Oh, we do this. Yeah,
nice.
That's right. There's a three-way pound thing.
Excellent.
This guy has got incredible diversity and a lot of stuff. Why don't we tee up that conversation with our guest?
Let's do it. Sully, for those people that aren't totally familiar, what's the obvious differences between your experiences working in a studio or working in a live venue? What's the obvious difference?
18,000 people?
Yeah, the obvious difference is the cavernous space that we do these shows in. You get a studio, the places sound amazing. Where I do my shows, they don't. So microphone choice, crucial to getting good quality sound. There's no isolation. Everything is on top of each other on stage. You can't say, oh, let's put the drums in this room and record them in this great sounding space. So it's mostly the difference between where we do the job.
Do you use a real tight cardioid type microphone? You use the Hiles, right?
I use mostly the Hiles. They're dynamics and they're not hyper. They're typical cardioids, but they're very, they like to pick what you point them at is what you hear. The rejection behind them is higher than most other dynamic microphones. So what comes to the back, the room, all the nastiness that I don't really need in my mix is not brought into the microphone because the mics are particular. They're what you point them at is what you hear.
Back when I used to do live sound, the hardest part for me was tuning the room. Is like, take me through the process. You get to the venue, let's say it's a new venue, you get out the truck, you got all this gear in your laptop,
Right.
you walk into the venue,
Right.
What next?
The first thing we do is we use a laser rangefinder and draw the room in a computer. The PA's, distances.
That's for time alone.
Well, just for the actual size and space of the room.
Okay.
Then once we have that in the computer, we can say, let's use this many boxes to cover it today. And let's hang
Boxes
them.
being arrays?
Yeah, you can go 10 deep, 12 deep, 14 deep. Most of us use line arrays nowadays. It's the most common PA.
Explain what a line array is.
A line array is a tall vertical column of all similar speakers, all exactly the same
Those are
speakers.
the ones you see above your head at the
Yes,
concert.
The phase coherency in a line array is in the vertical plane, which nobody sits. Once you're in your seat, you're there. Whereas in the old days, with a PA that's pointed and spread around on the horizontal plane, you have a lot more people sitting in those comb filtering ranges. So line arrays, what they've done is they've made them really wide and super narrow in the vertical. So the interaction between each box or each pair of boxes is almost none. And you have no listeners in different, other than where they sit in the room.
But you still have to delay them so that
You definitely still have to align.
The sound from the main and the sound from those is in phase, right?
Yes, you still, and the way I do that, after the PA is designed, after we figure out what size the room is and what we're putting up, I spread microphones on one side of the venue, and I'll put pink noise through the PA and measure the response in as many microphones as I feel like putting up that day. If it's an arena, I typically put up 8 microphones, spread them from high to low and side to front.
Now, these microphones, back in my day, we just had one microphone, it was right here. But these microphones, they're selected to find the average spots around the venue or trouble
basically
spots?
between SPL, like if I'm mixing the show at a specific SPL, then of course I want the majority of the seats to be similar to that. You can't have the front row blowing people's heads off and the back quiet. So what you're looking for is overall averaging. Is it the same level in the front as it is in the back, or at least within a range?
Like when you worked with Rihanna, what typical SPL would you work at with her?
I try to, I do this for a living, and so I don't want to damage my hearing. With the Rihanna show, the kids are from 8 to 40-year-old, people. So you want to be safe. I don't want to end my career
So you
prematurely.
think about that.
Yeah, I have.
News.
I actually went and bought. If we do festivals and I see the festival police walking around checking, calibrating their microphones and making sure that the people are staying within the limits. And I asked them, what are you using to calibrate your microphones? And I went and bought my own and make sure that my SPL measurement is calibrated to, ANSI
Are there
or
laws
OSHA.
about that?
In America, no. In Europe and the rest of the world, they're coming more and more prevalent, where the SPL is definitely particular. America, we have specific buildings that you can't go over this limit over time and that kind of thing. So yeah, I take it very serious. It's my career, so I don't want to end it prematurely because I'm just having fun blasting a PA into people's faces all night long. So for sure, I take it very serious.
So the opening act, do you still sabotage the opening act?
I never sabotage them. What I will not allow them to do is mix louder than I mix my show. And that's all I tell
Because people that haven't done this, they don't understand when you're the opening act.
Typically opening acts get less time to sound check. They get less time for, the headliner does all day long,
Right.
and the opening act gets like, the doors are open and they get to throw
10
their gear
minutes.
on stage and like
Absolutely.
get it going.
Absolutely.
So the house guys that mix these bands, they don't have as much setup, and they're just trying to throw it together and make it happen as fast as they can. And next thing you know, they're blowing the PA up. And so you have to kind of like reel them in, especially if my show sits at one level, I don't want the opening act. And typically their mixes are not as dialed because they don't get the time.
Right.
So it's loud and aggressive sounding, and you just want the
Good
show
to see
be,
that battle still goes on. 'Cause
Yeah, I typically don't do it without being hurtful.
I know you're not this way, but I've done an hour and a half sound check, and you get to the show, and the headliner, of course, does
destroyed.
their sound check after us, and then it's just destroyed. Nothing, the mics are swapped, all
Right.
the color codes and everything is. But I know you don't do that.
We keep it separate nowadays.
How do you integrate, like, a lot of times you guys will ask for stems from me, like you'll ask for the backgrounds or the violins or the strings. How do you integrate that into your process and keep it in time?
A lot of these, like the bigger pop shows, and the records are so elaborate and the budgets are so tight, you can't afford to take 20 musicians on the road. So what they'll do is they'll hire a guy that runs Pro Tools, and sometimes we'll get the full session. The musical director will go through and break down who's going to play what. You're going to do this piano part, okay, mute that. You're going to do this guitar part, mute that. And so the Pro Tools guy will run stems or bounces of things, and we'll get, say, 16 outputs, and basically we blend those with the live band and try to create a record sound without bringing all the players or all the parts by having a lot. It's mostly based on budgets is why we do that. It's expensive to tour.
Does
so.
everybody have, are you using like in-ear monitors? Does everybody have that
Yeah, typically-
signal in their ear, and then the drummer has a click track,
Yeah.
and everybody follows the drummer plus?
Yeah, click track is where it starts from, and some musicians, all of them will have it some days instead of just a drummer. Or a lot of times we'll have a slate track that'll have the count in and the name of the song, and the musicians will hear that, and the drummer will have his own click for the whole entire
Have you ever
song.
had an embarrassing moment when that system of stems failed?
No, we go out with backups, and we have a redundant system. So if one fails, they automatically switch to the second one, and they're fail-safe. When you're doing shows of this caliber, you have to have your act together, and most of the time we do.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated because when I was doing a little research on the state of the art of your profession now, we always worked in the horizontal plane, but now you guys work as much in the vertical plane as the horizontal. I never even knew the vertical plane was necessary. And going back a little bit, that's because of the phase arrays, the line arrays?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, the PAs, the way they work now, we've essentially flipped them on their side. Everybody always did this before, and now we're doing this.
Oh, so that's the way to think about it.
Yeah. So it's just because of the nature of the rigs we use.
And you and I were talking earlier. I don't think I realized how much time and effort you actually record every show, and then you study that, and then you see how you can improve it
Yeah,
and improve your
absolutely.
moves on the next show.
Yeah, I mean, the fans that are coming to see these shows, how many times do they listen to these records over and over? They know it better than you and I most of the time because they're fans.
Absolutely.
They listen to it religiously. So I do that.
Do you get involved in the rehearsal process
Of
before
cou-
it goes
yeah.
out?
Yeah, for
'cause
sure, first
that's
thing.
That's where the
Yeah, and a lot of
Meals
times,
being
I'm
made.
picking the microphone, so I have to come down and make sure, like, this is what I want to use on the stuff, and to make these shows sound the way they should, the way people expect. Everybody's a sound guy. We all know that. People have car stereos, and most people have stereos hooked up to their TVs now.
Yeah.
Not too many people have just basic TV sound anymore. So everybody has an idea of what things should sound like. So, I'm not going to be the one that doesn't make the point come across. I want to make sure what they get is what they expect.
Plus, you have to develop the relationship with the artist so he trusts that what's going out to his fan or her fan.
And the
is
best
what
part
it is.
about having Pro Tools in my pocket is the artist can come out and sit with me during the day and go, that sounds great. And sometimes they'll be in the earliest times of rehearsal, they'll go, do this, do that, but majority of the time they don't even get involved till it's show day, the first show day, and they walk by at lunchtime and go, sweet,
Cool.
I got it covered right now. So it's good to have it like that.
Has diversity, because you've done a lot of different things, has that been a good thing for you? Is it sort of get different chops in your ears.
Yeah, I mean, being pigeonholed into one genre is kind of, you know,
dulls the senses.
and it's, you know, you might not work as much because you only do rock and roll or you only do country or this or that. I like to look at it like the job at hand is making the show sound good, whether it's this type, this type, this type. So I study, do my research, and make sure that they're happy with what I'm giving them.
Right.
No matter what kind it is.
You mentioned Pro Tools and Avid, and I was looking at the Venue. That's the console you use from Avid. Pretty cool little console.
For sure.
I wonder if I could use that in a live world. I mean, in a studio world.
Oh, for sure.
Because you guys, you routinely do 100, 200 tracks sometimes in a live venue. That's
absolutely.
I remember in my day we were thrilled to get a 32 channel Snake.
We were ahead of technology.
I owned Atlanta with me and Larry Turner. Back in my day, we'd walk up and show up with a semi full of gear. You just walk in with a laptop now. Everything.
A USB stick.
Oh, man.
It's not even a laptop anymore. Now it's just a bunch of USB sticks, and that's
Andy
I could
carries
have.
it with him. I bet you got it on you.
I probably do in my pocket right here. I could walk up with 300 rack spaces of equipment on a stick, which is in my pocket somewhere here.
Amazing.
I can't find it though. There it is, right there.
I told you, man, that's a live sound guy right there. He's got his rig with him.
The Rihanna show.
Everybody's show.
Everybody's show.
Yeah, every artist could be on that one stick.
Amazing.
And all my plug-in settings, my authorizations, everything right here.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I could roll up to a show in any country, anywhere, as long as I have that desk. And, you know, I carry my own Pro Tools rig, so, you know, I'm ready to go no matter where we're at.
Wow.
That's so cool. I love it.
Technology.
To go back a little bit, when you have 20 mics around the arena, that sounds lovely, but something's got to combine them and give you useful information from all of them. If you took information from all 20 and tried to assimilate that into one sound coming out of the system, that would be impossible. Is there an algorithm, a program that does that?
I use a program that's it's called Smart 7, which is the version of it. And you essentially, however many channels and processing power of preamps in the computer you have, you can plug microphones into it. I typically do 7 or 8 microphones every day, and you lay them out on one screen and you average them. You know, back in the day with one microphone in front of house and a regular old RTA, if 160 was a problem, you'd go cut it and be like, cool, I fixed that problem. But nowadays, I can see that 160 is only a problem in this spot. Leave it alone. Because if I pull it here, I can see it dip out somewhere else in the room on one screen. So that you take the average, and by having all these microphones on one display with Smart, you can make sure that the cuts and the choices you make are accurate.
And balanced.
Back when I was doing it, and this is the last back when I was doing it thing, my favorite thing was to do live shows, outdoor shows.
Right.
Like I don't have I could just walk up and work. That was the easiest thing in the world. Is that still the same thing with you? Now your live shows are Red Rock and places. Is that your favorite place?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites for sure. You know, if you think about your hearing in your brain, when you're in a space, there's no way to simulate a space in your mix. Your brain is smarter than your ears are smarter than that. So if I try to put a small hall or a cool reverb on something, but I'm in a cave, it's confusing to your, even without you really recognizing that that's what's causing it.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
Especially in the EDM world.
Yeah, so outdoors, I can get away with murder. I can put whatever effects I want on and really put my mix to, you know, and I save settings for that. Like I'll do shows the whole tour, and we'll maybe do 4 or 5 shows outdoor, and I'll recall my outdoor show because I know my effects are a little bit up in the mix. And when you get into arenas, you got to dry all that stuff out because it's hard to fool your ear that this space is not, you know, you're in a space. You can't simulate another space while you're already in one. Outdoors, you have all the freedom to do what you want.
Typically, from the time you get to a venue to the time you're ready to go take your break and wait for the opening act to get over, what's that time span it takes you? Let's assume it's a new venue, not one you've already taken notes on and know, but a new venue.
We're pretty quick about it. We'll load in at 8 a.m. and we'll have the PAs. You know, we a lot of times we wait around for the chains to be pulled up in the air so we can pull the points up because sound is last. They do all the lighting and video and all that stuff first. But normally by noon we're bringing the PA out. So 4 hours of emptying the trucks, flying the rig in the air, turning it on, make sure it all works, listen to it with some, you know, do the system analysis within an hour, and then I'll listen to tracks. I'll pull the show from last night up and start listening to tracks. Go sit in some seats, spend an hour doing that.
Listen to tracks through the PA system.
Yeah, I'll put a song in loop and go sit in 25 seats in the room and make sure that what I have going on at front of house is how it sounds everywhere else. And that by, right after lunchtime, we're doing line check and then waiting on the band for a sound check at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're pretty quick about it.
Your day ends when? After load out?
Yeah, we load out,
Yep.
shows over at 11 or whatever. We do an hour, 2 hour, depends how many trucks,
Collapse and start it over the
Go
next
to
morning?
bed and sleep for how many miles you got to drive to the next show and wake up and do it again.
Yeah.
How many trucks was Rihanna?
16.
16.
Yeah.
That's a big
Only
That was just wardrobe.
That was, dressing room stuff. PA was only a truck and a half of that. Sound, lights and...
Seriously? That's
yeah,
all?
PA was 1.5 trucks with monitors, front of house. All the stuff we had for sound was only 1.5 trucks.
Jeez. Wow.
Man, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
The real-time analyzer that you use, that system, do you think that would be good in my world? We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, the greatest thing about it is it can show you coherence between the line feed, which is what's coming out of your desk.
Phase coherence.
Phase coherence. You can see that what reaches the microphone, if you're in a anechoic chamber, then there will be no phase issues because there's no reflections. But reflections skew what the microphone sees, and Smart takes those reflections and shows you that there's not 100% accurate phase, and then you can tell it to not show me the information if the phase is not accurate. So if you have a bounce off a console at 320 hertz and it knows that phase is 40 degrees out of phase, it'll show you that the phase is not accurate. Ignore either a dip or a peak in your response. So I'm not talking about with pink noise, I'm talking about with just your program material. You could be listening to a mix and make sure that, say you hear 320 hertz weird, you could rely on Smart to know that the reason you're hearing it funny is because it's reflecting off something and hitting your ear funny, as well as you always have the direct source from the speaker. So if a reflection is causing an anomaly, it's great to know that and know that the software and the hardware that's showing you that is accurate.
Have you ever done live sound in the Hollywood Bowl?
I have.
Is that a unique problem, something that's focusing the sound like a magnifying glass with the sun burning an ant up, and then you've got the reflection from behind you?
Yeah.
How do you solve that problem?
The biggest problem with that place is the neighborhood that's near it, and so the sound pressure limit that you're allowed to get away with there is very low. So what comes off the stage a lot of times,
Like 110, 105?
100.
Okay.
The limit there is 95 actually
You
at
serious?
front of house, and it's
I snore at 95.
exactly. It's pretty quiet, but there's some expensive neighborhoods around there, and they don't want to tolerate it, so they have friends and that keep the sound pressure in check. And the PA that exists there is built in. You can't bring your own system in. It's old, it's weathered, so there's a lot of challenges with doing sound at the Hollywood Bowl.
Look at the bright side. If Hollywood Bowl was in Georgia, then all the neighbors would be yelling Freebird, so it could be worse.
You better make a free burger.
How do you get in and out of your laptop? Are you coming in the line in, or are you using a converter?
I use a Metric Halo Mobile I/O. I use that Mobile I/O has been in one of my tools for a long time now, and it's I have 8 preamps in it for all the Smart microphones. I have walk-in music is done by iTunes, and I hit play, and it's got the AES output from that. I mean, it turns my laptop into a little mixer.
And how many IOs do you have with that?
I just use one of them.
Stereo?
Yep.
And man, the new Metric Halo is cool.
Yeah, they
I
make
love
amazing
it.
pieces.
I love it. And I can make my plug-in this big, It's like, makes it sound bigger, by the way.
Yeah, for
I didn't
sure.
know that. You can talk to them. The designer did that on purpose. When in the software world, you're not limited to a third of an octave in terms of each frequency that you can address, or do you tend to still enjoy working in third octave chunks when you're...
like tuning PAs was fully parametric EQs nowadays, and
Okay.
we get very precise.
How
And
many bands? As many as you want, right?
typically, you can use as many as you want. I normally tune a PA with a Dolby piece of gear. It's called a Dolby Lake processor, which has got 16 bands of parametric or Mesa filters. So you can make them however you want. You can create a bucket with one filter and pull from 500 to 800 however you want and change the the rate of everything. So it's a full-blown Mesa filter processor, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Have you ever noticed that when you do a gig in Florida where people wear less clothes as opposed to doing a gig in Sweden where they have a lot of jackets?
I apologize.
When the venue in Sweden feels...
Silly question,
He's
Dave.
going to answer.
No, silly question, Dave.
No. Because if they're wearing all
Call
those
him on
coats, that absorbs more, 100,000 people with coats on, that's going to absorb more high end than, say, a bunch of bare naked people in South Beach.
Skin's pretty soft. It does the same as clothes.
Back to the matters at hand. So you also do a lot of post-mixing in the studio of the shows that you've done.
Yes.
After 150 shows, you know the show.
Yeah.
And that's for what, DVD usage, other kinds
Yeah,
of content
typically
usage?
it's DVDs or a re-release of the record. Like with Norah last year, her record was doing really well in France, and they were like, "We're gonna re-drop the record. Can you remix this live show that we did in Paris?" It was a festival. They were like, and I mixed it on tour while we were on the road. I set up my near fields and
Got it done.
mixed it on the road with my live console and sent it off for mastering.
Do you enjoy that difference from getting in the studio, or which one do you like most?
I love the live sound because it's constant. It's like, you got to be an audio ninja to deal with sound, in the
You're on your
live
toes.
atmosphere. Where with the studio, it's a little more relaxed. You can kind of take your own time and really pick and pull. Where the
can make
live
mistakes and
aspect,
cover them.
you
You
can
can't
come
do that
back
a lot,
and
yeah.
fix things up. And the live, you really have to have your act together. You
Yeah.
gotta be on it and make sure you're ready for what's coming.
It's terror, but it's fun.
It
I
is.
love
It's a big time fun.
In the studio, we use gobos, which stands for go-between. So if we've got a guitar amp next to an acoustic piano, we put a what we call a go-between, a gobo. And a lot of our audience has seen the clear plastic around the drummer. Can you explain how you, with acoustic instruments that require a microphone?
I despise them.
You do?
I would rather pick a microphone for the singer that doesn't pick up 18 feet away and not have to make the drummer be in a fishbowl playing the drums. Because at the end of the day, the microphones that are 8 inches from that plexiglass don't sound that good on the toms, on the
they get
overheads.
reflection.
Yeah, you get a lot of weird slap and, anomalies in those drum microphones now because you've stuck this, usually it typically has to fit on a riser, and so it's right up against the kit. The bass drum has got a big plastic sheet, and if the drum tech, something falls or breaks, he can't get to anything. To me, they're a nuisance. I'd rather not use them. I'd rather be particular about the mic I used and not have to worry about cymbals getting in the mic.
A lot of people don't realize how similar what you do and what I do truly is, because you use a lot of saturation type plug-ins.
For sure.
You use the Phoenix Crane Song stuff, Crane Song Phoenix stuff. Is it Phoenix Crane Song or Crane Song?
Crane Song is the brand, and Phoenix
Yeah, Crane
is
Song Phoenix. And I love the fact that you take your kick drums and give them a little bit of tape saturation
For
sound
sure.
just to make them cut through, because a lot of people think that it's a different sound is sound.
Right.
The main difference is that what I end up with goes on in an MP3. Yours just
Comes through a PA.
comes through a PA.
Yeah.
But when I was reading some stuff about you, then as we were talking earlier, I was a little bit surprised, because in my day I didn't have a chance to EQ and touch and do 200 channels. We only had about 30.
Right.
But whatever you got, that's what you got, and we mixed it. But man, you've got so much flexibility and control now, thanks to plug-ins and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
cool that you utilize all that, because you're in the cracks, man.
yeah, and if you think about it, everybody wants this stuff right. You got a manager standing behind you; they expect it right. So you got to have the options to make it right. And
Everything is a committee, isn't it?
yeah, and the console, you got to have the capabilities. If I'm standing there with an analog desk and a rack of 8 gates and compressors, my hands are kind of tied.
Right.
So having the tools and the options are, when you're messing with a guitar part and you want to see what you can do to it, you need options, and you need a lot of places to go.
I love options, man.
Let's
That's a great way to put it.
warm up your arm there, Mr. Pitcher,
right,
and
all
let's get to
right.
batter's box. I think we got a serious batter at the plate. Fire it up.
Okay. Vocal plug-in.
Renaissance compressor.
Ooh. House mix.
Phoenix. Dark Essence.
Okay. Sorry. You threw me off there. Kick drum.
CLA 76. Blackie.
Snare drum.
Renaissance compressor,
RTA.
Smart 7.
Outdoors.
Let the effects fly here. Make it sound like it should.
There you go.
Vocal mic.
PR35 Heil.
Headphones.
Sony 7506s.
There you go. Boom. Out of here. No hesitation.
Don't ask him to come back.
Exactly. And you know what? He hit first pitches. Just.
Man, I think he set a record.
Yeah, listen, for speed, for sure. For sure. Bat speed and
I was throwing
bases.
curveballs, I was throwing
hit 'em all.
fastballs, change
Nothing works,
ups, he
man.
hit them all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lots of great information there. We got more stuff. We got a bunch of people in the corner office. Let's introduce our producer man, Will Thompson, sitting over there in the corner.
Hello,
William, hello. There he
everybody?
is.
Giraffe. What's your giraffe's name, William?
Was it Jimmy the giraffe? I can't remember what it
Jimmy
was.
Giraffe.
And I got my little hi-hat,
Oh, there we go.
so I'm doing just
Committed to
fine over here.
drums. Fire away, William. You got some questions for Sully?
I do. I have a bunch of questions. So let's go. The first one in the chat room from Science the producer. Question
Yes, man. He's
for Sully. What is your go-to delay plugin for front of house work?
H delay. Waves.
Got it. Next one is, let's see. This one's from Vicious Lullabies, I think.
Are you making these up?
No, unfortunately. How close is the interaction between the actual artist and the front of house mixer before the show? And how does the process of achieving the artist-specific sound on stage work?
The interaction before the show is probably not much.
It's in rehearsals, right?
During rehearsal, you spend a lot of time. You know, they watch the show. They want to know what the show's about. They want to make sure that what we're putting together as a whole, with lights, video, dancers, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, then they'll hang out with you. Show days, you never see the artists.
see them.
They're busy. They're doing TV
Promotion and
stuff,
stuff, yeah.
and you know, so you never see them.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, getting their point across, their record to the fans, is important to them. So yeah, they spend a lot of time with you at the house mix. Some do, some don't. Some rely on the bass player to say, yeah, I heard the front house guy working today. It sounds great, and they're cool with that. So it really depends on the artist and how much they get involved.
Makes sense. William?
Okay, this one's from Facebook, coming from Dave. Hey, Sean, especially in the hard rock metal world, I always find that heavy rhythm guitars often get buried in the live mix. Can you give us an idea why that is, and any advice as to how to avoid it?
Hire him.
Hire me. I'll come fix it for you. You know, you got to remember, guitars are typically in the same bandwidth as voices. So there's a lot of mush that wants to take up that exact same space. So panning is your friend. High pass filters, if they're big, fat, thick guitars, get rid of some of the low end, because the bass guitar and kick drum are already covering that.
Yeah.
Get rid of some of that. Cut some of the bass out of it. Compress it. If he's playing little fret picks and chunking on it hard, you're never going to hear those things unless you get a little compression on there. You know, high pass is your friend. Don't be afraid to cut some bottom end out of things.
Do you add any like extra 1 or 2K to the vocal?
You know, in the live, you kind of got to be really particular with that because the mics are in the same room as the speakers. So a lot of time it's hard to add things for cut when you really just got to find space with panning. Or a lot of times I'll use like the Wave psychoacoustic plugins, PS22, and like kind of spread the guitar. It's you know, you think about a guitar when you mic it, you're sticking a microphone right in the speaker. We don't ever hear a guitar like that. You hear it bounce off of all the walls and all the space, and so when you stick that microphone, now you have a truly mono source that is not natural sounding. That's not how we ever hear. We don't ever put our head down in there and not hear the other space. So I use a lot of psychoacoustic plugins that simulate space without using reverbs and effects.
I got a quick question, guys. Like back in Wayne's World day, you'd hear feedback all the time. I never hear feedback at concerts now. Do you have an automatic feedback suppressor?
No, we just, you know, a lot, nowadays we pick microphones that don't feedback. People, for the longest time, just brought their favorite studio mics to the road, and those don't work. They're very open and airy, and they're designed to pick up the room.
You notice that, Herb? You never hear feedback anymore.
Yeah, it's such a cliche. You see it in every time someone stands on a podium in a movie, they put feedback in. Like,
It just doesn't happen anymore.
yeah, it's not acceptable. You know, fans aren't paying for feedback.
That's right. Got another one, Will?
I do. This one's from the chat room. Do you use the latency compensation mode on the venue console? At what point is it necessary, and do you ever worry about how much is building up?
It's the first thing I turn on in every session that I start, because every plugin's got its own time that it takes to do the processing. So of course, first thing I do, latency compensation. You have to remember that the PA is hung 35, 40 feet in the air, so there's automatically delay that is acceptable, that people are okay with. And the PA doesn't necessarily point at the fan, so, I mean at the band, so they don't really hear it per se, and so you can get away with, and when we're talking about latency in a console, we're talking about frames.
Samples, yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking about seconds, so it's undetectable for live concerts. It's not an issue.
Good question, though.
Absolutely. WT?
Okay, here we go. What's the best time, you guys talked about ringing out the system earlier, but what's the best time to ring out the system, and how do you go, I mean, we already talked about how you do it. Is it when you, with the empty house, and then when the audience fills up, how do you go about dealing with that?
The best time is...
Depends on if you're in Sweden or Florida.
Right.
Yeah. The best time is lunchtime, when everybody else goes to lunch, because nobody likes pink noise. It's not fun to listen to pink noise. I don't like listening to it myself either. Best time is lunch, when everybody's away doing, having a little lunch break. And,
Makes sense.
but the difference between a crowd and a not a crowd, it's only going to get better. Crowds, you have plastic seats and all these obnoxious surfaces in a room
Right.
that you have to deal with when the room is empty, and when the people come, it's just going to get better. If you have a good reference of what the rig sounded like with it empty, then you'll know what to deal with when the people show up.
Let's do one more, William.
Last one is from Mike Walker in the chat room. When you're shooting out a room, are you just going for a flat frequency response just all the time, or is there kind of a general different?
Never looking for a flat response. What I'm looking for is no massive peaks or dips between bandwidth. So if you tune a room razor flat, it'll sound very bright and no bass. What I typically do is for you guys, the bass up and the treble down. Your body and your brain is used to, with distance, having a lot of high frequency roll off. It just naturally, it happens when you stand far away from something. So you never want the back of the room brighter or more treble than the front of the room. So I typically just want a nice little general curve, from bass to the high frequency, and no big dips or peaks in anything. You don't, if you put a reference mic up to a studio monitor, the highest, most expensive studio monitors, none of them are razor flat, unless you're in an anechoic chamber, which is, there's no reflection.
Well, NS10s aren't flat anyway.
No.
Last question is really from me, which is, when I contacted you to be on the show, get used to seeing my number pop up on your thing, because I'm having you back a bunch to
Great.
do stuff. Can we have you back to do
For
some
sure.
more stuff?
Absolutely.
Both on the show and some of the stuff we do out around the country?
Absolutely.
It'd be
I
fabulous.
got a request. Tell our friend Charlie Wilson hello. When
Oh,
I-
I will.
absolutely.
I
That's-
will for
that's
sure.
our man. Sully, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me.
Incredible. David, take us home.
I don't know what to say. I mean, that's
He said it all.
the most concise, precise, sharp,
Yeah.
to the point
Love it.
guest we've ever had. Incredible. You threw me off, because normally I can find a way to drag things out, but man, whew, that was fun. See what I'm talking about? There's other options besides mixing. In football, everybody wants to be the quarterback, but this year's draft, it was more defensive players, and that's a metaphor for the world. You guys expand your horizons. Listen to what he said. It's such a cool thing. It's one of the greatest professions ever. So, next week.